It's called Take Me to Your Readers, and the intention for me is how to promote reading enjoyment and reading development with children of all ages. So it's a literature-based book, which is something that I'm always interested in. So my work in teaching literacy is literature-based, how to choose books and how to use books. The context in this case is the classroom. So how do we help teachers choose and use books to help kids to grow as readers? So that was the background for it. I do have two other books about children's literature. One book's called Good Books Matter, and one book is called This is a Great Book. Good Books Matter is an overview of the different genres of children's literature, and This is a Great Book specifically looked at developing leisure reading with kids and helping kids grow as independent readers, specifically with novels, grades 3 to 9 in particular. So this book I needed to find a different approach, and I wanted to organize it in different genres of literature, but also provide teachers with response strategies that they can use in their classroom. When we talk about response strategies, the basics are reading, writing, and talk. Of course, I need to get the arts in there because I'm an arts-based person, and then you've got visual arts, drama, and of course music gets in there. And I had to pay attention to 21st century learning with some technology, which isn't my strength, but I knew I had to address it. So I came up with a schema of different response strategies, and I wrote them down and manipulated them to see how I can organize it. So the book is organized under 5 chapters, which became my way of sharing ideas with teachers. Connect to books, which is how we motivate kids to read of all ages. Connected by genre is chapter 2, looking at the different genres in children's literature. Chapter 3 is connected by response. How do we build the different response modes to engage students to share their meanings and deepen their understanding of the books that they read. Connected by theme is an organization medium for teachers to use in the classroom so they can choose themes and content that connects to the curriculum, which leads to chapter 5 is connected to curriculum. How do we use children's literature in math and social studies, in the arts, etc. So that was the schema that I used that tended to work for me. Something that I liked that I came up with was I dug into my own past. I was a classroom teacher for 25 years. So I highlighted best practices that I use that I didn't want to let go of. So when I was trying to describe them, I realized that I had some data from my own world, and those are beliefs that I hold on to, so I wanted to share those with teachers. And some of that work was drawn from my thesis work about interactive classroom communities and literacy. So one framework is from Larry's classroom. I met teachers at workshops and in courses as I was developing this book, so I said, what's the best literacy practice that you're doing? And I said, would you mind contributing to my book by sharing your best practices? I didn't want to burden them with writing a lot, but I just wanted them to describe something they did with literature that was meaningful in their classroom. So I think I have about 25 voices with classroom teachers who shared that. So that's another aspect of the book. And the third part, there were some things that I realized that I was asking teachers about, and they didn't have evidence. I only have a small world of teachers, so I went into classrooms. Some teachers very openly and generously invited me into their classrooms, and I did a workshop in the classroom. So that's how I got my data. So it was from my classroom, the voices of teachers, and Larry visits a classroom. What I liked about that, in an overview, is it really brought authenticity. So it wasn't just me mentioning ideas. Everything was drawn from a classroom experience, whether it was mine or another teacher's or me working with a teacher. So that's how the book developed. I found it as I was writing the book, I would do book lists. So if I was doing a theme on bullying, I developed some book lists. If I was doing a topic about poverty, I had a book list, certainly with novels for different age groups, and when I moved math books and science books or nonfiction books. When I got to poetry, I had a wealth of books to draw on. So another thing that I love about this book is I give teachers lots of book lists, just to help teachers be aware of children's literature. Teachers often ask me, what books are you using, what books do you recommend, and then how to use the books, which is the response. So that's how this book came to me. So it's a practical book. I like the framework because it's a dip-in book. If a teacher wants to learn about a specific strategy, they can see how it was done, and I try to give an explanation and step-by-step teacher tips for how to use a strategy, why to use a strategy. And that's how the book came to me. I went into a grade 5-6 classroom. I think it was a combined 5-6. And I asked students to tell me stories about their names. And it was something that I borrowed and adopted from a colleague of mine who does brilliant research on names as artifacts of our lives. And I've done it with teachers, so I went into the classroom to go through the different components of that particular lesson. And I read a picture book about names. I told a story about my own name. The teacher told a story about his name. And the students, I gave them a template for thinking about their names. Do they like their name? Who were they named after? What would they change about their name? What's interesting about their name? What's challenging about their name? So that template, and then they talked about it with the groups. And a beautiful moment was when we sat around a circle and every student told a story about his name or her name. And as a follow-up, they wrote stories about their names on file cards. That was the final reflection. And when I came back to the office, I just read their stories, and they were great. And they surprised me, they touched me, and so I chose some excerpts of that to put in the book. So those aha moments, I think it just, inspires students to think about their own identities. And so that was an aha moment for me. I worked with a grad teacher of grade 1 children, and they were absolutely delightful. One of my goals, I wanted to do collaborative books, so where each student contributes a page and we put the book together. And I used Todd Parr books. His books are very popular, so he has one, Peace Is, and Being Different. His books are very simple in their presentation. They're very flat, bright colors. So I went in with the book. I read them the book, the underwear book, and which delighted them. And I left that book as a gift for the classroom. But the book that I worked with was called Reading Is. So we brainstormed, what is reading? Why do we learn to read? And how do we know we're good readers? So I had that conversation with them, and each student had to develop a page that we were going to put into book. Well, that took 3 days. We put a book together called Mrs. X's Class Loves to Read. And that was how they just were, when I went in with the book at the end, they were just smiling and beaming. Those are happy things that I remember from my experiences in the classroom. So I teach literacy, and I teach first-year teachers and second-year teachers. And whoever's teaching the course organizes it around their own beliefs. So I'm a literature-based person. So I try to share that passion, get them excited how they can use literature to deliver meaningful curriculum. And that's one of the things, to meet the goals of the curriculum. So stretch kids as readers, writers, and speakers and thinkers. And also to, it helps deliver the curriculum. It's a way where literature can help bring the world to the kids and take the kids to the whole world. But it's also a meaningful way to make a curriculum come alive, whatever subject. So I do that through demonstrations. And some students pick up on it because I always walk in with a book. I talk about a strategy or two that they can use. And in my 12 weeks of the course, that's all I can do. As Dr. Larry recommends, where you can get titles, but I have a mantra or a banner on my website, and it says active, joyful learning. So I make that up front with my students because it's something that I believe in. I want the students to be active participants in their learning. And for me, joyful means that they had success. Our goal is to make sure that every child has success. And it's hard, and it's hard work, and it's challenging work, but our goal is to ensure that every kid improves and feels successful. And when it's active and joyful, then they're learning. So that's sort of my beliefs, and that's something I share with my teachers. And the way I approach it for teacher educators coming to that to the understanding of that. It's not just by telling them, by demonstrating it. So we go through this experience. Some are reluctant to participate, they just want to tell me what to do. But I believe that if they've done it, they come to understand what it's about. I think there's a widespread buy-in for the use of children's literature. I think in the 21st century, there's so many demands of curriculum issues, curriculum expectations, using technology, and there's so much coming at teachers. I just don't want to lose the place for children's literature. And I think it's hard, we've got to hang on to it. And I think in my head, after years of experience, it's still, it may be a harder sell, but for me it's a very, very important sell. So I think it's something I believe in. So hopefully if they read a good book and share a good book, my time's been well spent with teachers, whether they read about it in my resource, Take Me to Your Readers, or where they see me demonstrate it. I think it carries far. So I'm always going to talk about good books.